Hi, I'm Josh Vogel. This is the Sloth Report video log. It's been a while since I have put one of these out, so I figured I would put one of these out. Um, what I want to talk about today is something that I don't really hear talked about very much. It's how to think in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Um, this is, to me, almost more important than the actual techniques or being strong or being fit or being fast. Um, Thinking clearly about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu techniques. What I mean a bunch of different things by that. The first thing that I mean is when I teach a move, an armbar, a certain variation of a bump and roll, an X choke, whatever. I I work really hard to try and have good reasons why I choose that particular technique. So, for example, when I'm teaching a move to a new student, and they ask me, "Well, I saw this guy likes to do the move this way, and you're teaching it this way. Why do you do that?" Um, and I like to have an answer for that, a reason why I choose my variation over other variations. For example, if I do the Marcelo Garcia version of the guillotine, I would explain to my students I do the guillotine this way because if you don't throw your forearm over their shoulder, they're going to do the traditional guillotine defense where they grab your wrist and then throw their arm over your shoulder to defend. Um, if I choose a certain type of guard passing over a different type of guard passing, I like to have a reason for that. And then, how do I choose what my reasons are for choosing one technique over another? Usually, it has something to do with upsides and downsides. If I do an armbar from on top of the mount, and this is the first move that I do as soon as I get to the mount, what is the best thing that can happen? What is the upside? Upside, I finish an armbar, I tap somebody. That's awesome. The downside, if I screw the armbar up, then my opponent gets on top of me, possibly passes my guard, and smashes me. So, good upside, bad downside. If I choose a head and arm choke from the mount as my first move from the mount, the upside, I tap the person. The downside, they get out of the head and arm choke. The worst thing that's going to happen is they get their arm free and you're still on top of the mount. So it's the same upside as the armbar. If you do it perfectly well, then you get a submission. They tap. The downside is very different. If I do the armbar and I screw up, they get out of my they end up on top of me. If I do the head and arm choke and I screw up, or they escape, then I'm still on top of the mount. So that makes me work on my head and arm choke from the mount more than I do my armbar from the mount. And that means that if I end up on the mount on top of somebody and I work really, really hard to get on top of the mount on a really good black belt or a really big dude, the first move I'm going to go for is the head and arm choke. The last move I'm going to go for is a move that's going to risk my position because I worked really hard to get on top of this guy. And I don't want to risk losing that position and have to do all this work to get out of the bottom position, sweep them, get back on top, pass the guard, mount, and then go for a submission again. So I choose my techniques based on upside, downside, what's the best that can happen, what's the worst that can happen. Is the technique inherently dangerous? Does it require special attributes? Do I have those attributes? Does a technique require strong grips? I always try to have specific reasons for why I choose a technique over another. And I think this makes it a lot easier for me to. Um, I think it makes it easier for me to teach people. And I think also, too, I feel more comfortable when my students ask me a question. I actually like it when my students ask me questions, and I particularly like it when they stump me. Like they ask me a question and I don't have a good answer, that means that's something I need to think about more, and that means that that's something that I need to have an answer for, and that's an area of my knowledge that has not been mined yet for information. If somebody were to ask me um, why I choose to do why I go for Uchimata when people try to single leg me from the feet. Um, so far, I would have to answer I do that because I get single legged a lot, and I've had success against that. Against the single leg with the Uchimata. Upside, I throw somebody, I end up on top. A lot of the time, I end up on top of half guard and they have an underhook. Downside, if I screw up, they end up on top of me or they finish the single leg. So that might be an area where I need to think more about or develop my knowledge further. But the point is that I'm always looking to have a clear, logical reason for the techniques that I do, for the positions that I choose, for the things that my approach to jiu-jitsu. Um, and if I don't have a clear reason for that, and there's always going to be something that I don't have a real reason for, I want to try and find a reason for that. I don't want to be the guy that somebody asks me, well, why do you choose the head and arm choke over the arm bar? I don't know. I like it. I like that version better. Um, there's nothing wrong with that answer, but I would rather have a more thorough, detailed understanding of it than I just like it. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about that, um, you can email me at joshvogel2003 @yahoo.com. Um, if you want to see more of this stuff, check out my other video logs. You can check out my website, joshvogelart.com. Um, Sign up for the Sloth Report. It's $5 a month. TheSlothReport.com. It's my video magazine where I put out a lot of my concepts. All right, thank you. The last thing I forgot to mention is sometimes the reason can be because it's fun or whatever. Like it, the point is to try to always have a reason, but you don't really always have to have a reason. It's just by practicing thinking and looking for reasons behind what you do, you're going to understand your jiu-jitsu a lot better and get a lot better at it. I'm not saying that all jiu-jitsu has to have solid logical reasoning behind it. Sometimes it's fun to be spontaneous and not think about jiu-jitsu and treat it like, just something you enjoy and doesn't have to be heavy and logical and thought out and stale and, mathematic like that. But you want to train yourself you want to use that mentality as a training exercise. Try to have a reason for the things that you do so that you're constantly looking to understand what you do better, if that makes any sense. So, don't go nuts like over analyzing everything, because that can have its pitfalls also. You have to be free and enjoy jiu-jitsu and not think about it too much sometimes also, but use the mentality of trying to have a reason for everything as a training exercise, to make you understand your jiu-jitsu better when it's time to understand your jiu-jitsu better. And when it's time to just do jiu-jitsu and not think about it and just have fun and do the armbar from the mount and not care what the consequences are, do that too. It's all part of the game, but I think you guys get what I'm saying.